But finally, here is how Mark Lloyd responded just before you went away for holiday. Quote, "I am not at the FCC to remove anyone, whatever their color, from power. I am not a supporter of Hugo Chavez." Well, Mr. Lloyd, here's the problem. You're either lying in that statement or your last statement. You know, you either think Chavez had an incredible revolution or he didn't. You either think people have to step down so others can have a chance or you don't. Which is it? You see, what this administration does, and what the left is doing now, night after night after night, is they just ask you to pretend that one set of videotape remarks just doesn't exist. Now, we also told you where he stood on the fairness doctrine.
What we're really saying is that the fairness doctrine is not enough, and that having a sort of overarching rule that says, you know, broadcasters ought to be fair, ought to provide the issues important to communities, and that they ought to do it in a fair and balanced way is simply enough, unless you put some teeth into that and put some hard structural rules in place that are going to result in fairness.
Oh, structure. That's a word you're going to need to join us on Wednesday for. Structure. Okay, fairness doctrine, he says, doesn't go far enough. But then he attacks me and others, saying he never wanted the fairness doctrine. Quote, "I am not at the FCC to restore the fairness doctrine through the front door or the back door, or to carry out some secret plot funded by George Soros to get rid of Rush Limbaugh, Glenn Beck, or any other conservative talk show host." He's right. I don't think I ever said that he was doing some sort of secret plot with George Soros. And I also did point out that he has no intention of restoring the act, the fairness doctrine. Why do I know that? Because his own words told us that the fairness doctrine doesn't go far enough. He wants something possibly much, much worse. Maybe it's just me, but I think it might be close to beyond a reasonable doubt to assume that it might be something that would resemble Chavez's incredible revolution. The facts are that Lloyd does believe in the incredible revolution of Chavez, in his own words. He does want Venezuela's government-controlled media here. Use his own words. Okay, so we have Mark Lloyd. I'm not going to argue it anymore. I'm going to treat a snake like a snake and not like a cute little puppy dog, because we'll get bitten. Unless and until this phone rings with a reasonable explanation on the incredible revolution and the fairness doctrine doesn't go far enough, and we have to ask ourselves who steps down so others can have a chance. Mark Lloyd, case closed. We know who you are. Now, next one is healthcare. Oh, there's a lot on healthcare this week. Don't miss a single episode of the show. Last summer, during the healthcare debate, we told you that the administration's math didn't add up. It was a very reasonable explanation on the program. I appealed to your reason. I said it would be impossible to add 30 million people to healthcare onto the rolls and at the same time add no additional doctors or nurses, and then not have rationing. You can't do that, because some bureaucracy would have to decide whether you would receive or they would receive ration health care. The terms death panels was applied. Well, here is the fact. On August 6, 2009, I said this. I want to make it very, very clear. What these people are talking about is how to ration in the case of an emergency. They define that as a shortage of kidneys, hospital beds, or flu vaccine. A shortage. But what we have to remember is universal health care creates another shortage, a shortage of money. And when we are out of money, these people will begin making the rules governing your health care. Okay, doesn't that sound reasonable? Does that sound crazy, like a conspiracy theory? We run out of money, or we get short on money. If there's an emergency, short on kidneys, short on money, well, then we have to have somebody decide who gets what. Does that sound crazy? Well, the left thought it did, attacking me, Sarah Palin, and anybody else who dared suggest a health care panel would need to be formed so there could be some rationing.
There is no death panel. There is no judgment based on societal productivity. There is no worthiness test.
In the end, the lie of the year, by far, according to PolitiFact.com, there's our drum roll, was this. It was from former Alaska Governor Sarah Palin saying seniors and the disabled will have to stand in front of Obama's death panel so his bureaucrats can decide whether they are worthy of health care.
Now, I don't have, well, I could be a geek and just say, and in the end, the lie of the year, I could do that. I don't have the geeky drum roll, but instead of telling you the lie of the year, how about I just tell you the truth? As discovered by the New York Times in a front-page article about our mushrooming unsustainable debt. Here is the truth from the Times. Quote, "The competing demands could deepen political battles over the size and the role of government, the trade-offs between taxes and spending, the choices between helping older generations versus younger ones, and the bottom line questions about who should ultimately shoulder the burden." That was the New York Times. That also sounds reasonable, doesn't it, when there's a shortage of money? So the New York Times says it, but SEIU named me the fearmonger of the year. That's weird. I wonder if the New York Times will share that award with me. We also discovered a very unusual situation with Obama's cash for clunkers on campaign for the cars.gov website. Watch this. If you log on to this at your home, everything in your home is now theirs?
Basically, and there's nothing you can do to challenge it.
Well, not your couch, just your computer.
Yeah, you may not like the language, it may be off-putting, but it's completely legal. They're well within their recourse to do so, and it's very broad.
Okay, that was the first time anybody had talked about it. That was the first day we talked about it. That if you log online, your computer becomes their computer. Well, this brought out the bloggers. TrueSlant.com said Beck's hysterical rantings have no basis in reality or fact. As usual, the same dedicated collection of wingnuts and conspiracy theorists have picked up the story as gospel truth. Little Green Football said, "It's there at a point where most reasonable people will start realizing that Glenn Beck is a raving freakazoid nut sandwich. What a disgrace. This is nothing but unjustifiable fear-mongering." Blog for All says Beck is an idiot who clearly hasn't done his research. There are plenty of things to criticize about the Cash for Clunkers program, but this isn't one of them. You have it? I was a conspiracy nut, an idiot, insane, hysterical, a Luddite, and I hadn't done my research. Had I done my research? Well, for the uninitiated, let's start with Luddites. Those were a group of workers in early 1800s England who wanted to destroy machinery. They feared technology might replace workers. That hasn't happened, but let's just go down the Luddite that I am. Boy, that's me, huh? A technophobe. That's why I utilize every medium known to man to get the word out. I'm afraid of technology. Part of the rap from the left was that the website was only set up for dealers, which this program made clear all along. Listen to the language. The dealer goes to cars.gov, and then they hit submit transaction. Tonight, an incredible update on the Cash for Clunkers disclaimer that forced car dealers to give the federal government their computers as federal property. The dealer's computers would be considered federal property when logged on. We also warned that this could spread to all of us. Is this sort of government intrusion suddenly not a concern to the left? The same people who wailed and gnashed their teeth every time George Bush made a move with the Patriot Act, which, by the way, is still under Barack Obama in place. That's weird, isn't it? All was well after the administration changed the warning. The very next day, they said it was just poorly worded. But the administration changed the warning. Really? Are the White House lawyers that bad that they can't even properly word the disclaimer for a $2 billion program that was supposed to kickstart the economy? Wow, we should have just said the Patriot Act was poorly worded. More in a second. America, I know there's a ton of things going on. There's health care, the bill that was signed. There's also all of this with the, the guy with the explosives in his underpants. I know there's a lot going on. So you tune in today and say, why is Glenn talking about all this stuff in the past? Because this is critical for this program this year. You must remember the past if you're going to understand the future. I am closing the door on all of the things that we talked about last year because they are fact. They are indisputable facts at this point. So all this week, we're going to lay out the facts so we then know exactly where we need to go. Please don't miss an episode all this week. I want to take you back for a couple of minutes here. On late July of last year, we discovered that Obama had hired an avowed communist revolutionary, a 9/11 truther. He was the green job czar. The only person, by the way, we have ever accused of being a communist. And only then because that's what Van Jones said of himself. Obama's new green czar, Van Jones. This is the guy who is a self-avowed communist. And he is in the Obama administration. This guy wasn't a radical, then was arrested, came out a communist.